Who are these people? 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 Who are these people?
I watched a man decide to stand up for us, and I watched them take him away. So I had to break down your respect for the process, but the process won't be saved. Hi, I'm Nancy, and I love ice cream.
I enjoy it.
But not as much as watching people forced out of their homes.
I like it better than anything else.
Watching people forced out in the streets to live alone, and knowing that I own every homeless set of bones.
I don't know why, but it seems to agree with me. I have a lot of energy.
It's all more support from my hideous and ill-gotten throne, the weight of which is too much for you to bear alone. Which is why you ended up threadbare alone, kicked off your benefits and left to your own. The diner that you worked at was told it could open its doors, but there's no clientele, and it's probably just as well, because half of the staff didn't last, so they can't come to work anymore. You can't expect a corpse to pull itself through the door to flip omelets for $8 an hour anymore. Make your own food, clean your own floors, fake your own news, fill a whole morgue. Get a film crew out front, but don't let them in the doors. Let's keep it frontline heroes, America's soldiers, you know the score. Joe knows the score. I watched a man decide to stand up for us, and I watched them take him away. So I had to break down your respect for the process, but the process won't be saved.
Who are these people?
Stop saying the election is so goddamn important and start telling Joe he needs to rein in his supporters. Oh, that's right. Joe can't even rein in his tongue behind his resin molars. Pardon me for asking for some faculties from someone who is vying to control us. The man is not quite yet speechless, but you can bet he's soulless. And if you think he can stop the greatest threat that's ever held a public office, you might be Joe's equal in the ignorance department. But I can guarantee you we will finish what we started, a rabid coalition of activists and politicians, sex workers, educators, artists. Those of us who followed Bernie so close and fell the farthest, who will not falter until all of us are cared for, regardless of whether it would turn a profit. Now I am not a leader or a teacher or a prophet, but I am here to proudly say today is the day I start campaigning for the role of Speaker of the House that we will build from the bones of the old Congress. And when I say bones, I do not mean framework or stones, I mean literally bones of the old guard keeping us from progress. Tonight's the last dawn before things get their darkest. Tonight's the last dawn before things get their darkest.
Who are these people?
The calm before the storm, the calm before the harvest. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right.
Who are these people?
Tonight's the last dawn before things get their darkest.
Our society and our world are full of these invented and built up and contrived facades. And sometimes some people come along with a hammer and smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade. It's a brilliant, powerful hammer to smash that facade.
Welcome to the future. Shit where you please. The Wi-Fi's killer, but there's no more bees. So there's hardly any flowers, there are very few trees, and you'll pay $1,000 for some honey for your tea. But we got these awesome collars, mine's an Apple Model 3. It allows for better movement than the Tesla X Elite. It lets you customize the ads that it implants in every dream. And for premium subscribers, doesn't shock you in your sleep. But it doesn't stop there.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Well, okay, that went to me. Hi, everyone. I got this guy next to me. It's Indy. I got Reek sitting next to me, and it's Sunday night, so you know it's time for How Do We Miss That? Didn't really have much of a lineup put together, even as late as Saturday midday, and I'm like, I don't even know if I have enough to really do a show. That's right, Harps, cunts. That's whom. That's who these people are. That's right. Thank you for getting the cunt count started very early on. Appreciate that. Good to see you, brother. Yeah. So how do we miss that Sunday nights? It's been kind of a weird week, and feel like there's only been like a couple of really strong narratives purveying across most of even independent media. So pulling stories was a challenge. What'd you do all week, man?
Nothing, mainly.
I did absolutely nothing.
Got a new workout program, been doing that.
It was everything I could hope
You
for,
know?
right?
Did a show Wednesday.
Yes, you did.
You know.
Did a show with Care Bear, INN News. For those who haven't checked that out, go watch INN News Wednesday nights, 9 o'clock every week. So yeah, we're here to do some stories. We're going to talk about some things that aren't such a surprise, like Miriam Adelson buying Trump. But that was on full display last week, and I thought we needed to talk about that for a second. We also have there's a ton of fuck Israel this week, just like every week. And just because, you know, we're going to keep talking about it.
How about that ceasefire, huh?
Well, we're going to talk about the lack of ceasefire. We're also going to talk about one that might have slipped under most people's radar, which is that one of the major voting system companies got sold, which doesn't happen very often. And who it was sold to and how it's going to potentially be used going forward is a little bit concerning. So we're going to go there for a minute. We are going to take a minute to talk about the thing that happened yesterday across the country. These peaceful No Kings rallies, quote unquote, corporate sponsored, but very well attended. So we'll address some of that, and then we'll get into some lightning round at the end. I even have an exclusive that one of our listeners and watchers from the UK brought me. So stay tuned for that at the end. And then we'll also be going through the GoFundMes, of course, and talking about justice for Aspen. Last night we did a one-on-one with, I aired that with Aspen Martin and her mother, Halo Benson. And Aspen is on trial for her life, effectively, because it's 33 years mandatory minimum in prison. And that's for drug trafficking. She didn't know there were drugs in the vehicle that she was in, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to learn more about that, watch that one-on-one from last night. But we also announced during that live stream that next Wednesday night, on the 29th of October, we're going to be doing a special fundraiser live stream at INN. And we're going to partner with Descent in Bloom to do that. She's going to show that on her Substack channel while we show it on all the INN channels. And Misty Winston's going to be there. She's going to host a conversation between her and Aspen and Halo Rumor has it that Descendant Bloom might be joining to talk about Georgia prisons. That might happen. And then we also are going to have a performance by Jesse Jett, where he's going to perform a set list of songs. And then afterwards, we're going to hopefully be able to open it up and have him perform donations upon request. So, requests for people who donate to the GoFundMe. And we'll have the GoFundMe links and everything else. And we'll shout out Shanna and some of the other GoFundMes later tonight, too. So we got a big lineup of stuff, considering that I didn't really have very much to pull to begin with. Before we get into all of that, let's ask everyone to fund the media that they want to see, because we are independent and we are not corporate funded and we don't take ads. So these are the amazing people that have already supported INN and supported this channel. And thank you again. This week, Paula from Carnival Hill dropped something into my PayPal that was most surprising and unexpected. Thank you. And Ralph Mejia as well. The ways to support this network are by using Cash App. $ Indie News Network is our handle over there. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. Our website at indienewsnow.com. That's self-hosted. We're actually live over there right now. There's a bunch of news in addition to where you can keep the news free. And then over at Substack, we've got indiemediatoday.com, where we're live right now. Greetings to everybody watching over there. And we'll be live over at innnewsletter.com. That's for the network newsletter. We'll be live there for boat smashing and other boats. That's our react show that we do after this one. So, all right. We're going to get into the Trump Miriam Adelson story first, because I thought that would be a little bit lighter and a little more fun to get into. And I decided to go with one of our friends, quote unquote, but an Indie Media Award honoree, Caitlin Johnstone, because this really requires like the level of whatever however she writes and the tone she writes in, you know, this scorn and dismissiveness and contempt that she has. I love this article. Trump keeps admitting that he's bought and owned by the world's richest Israeli. Right? And I'm going to let Tim do the honors here because he does it better than I can.
Trump keeps admitting that he's bought and owned by the world's richest Israeli. It's bizarre how little mainstream attention is given to the fact that the President of the United States has repeatedly confessed to being bought and owned by the world's richest Israeli, especially given how intensely fixated his political opposition was on the possibility that he was compromised by a foreign government during his first term. During a speech before the Israeli parliament on Monday, President Trump once again publicly admitted that he has implemented Israel-friendly policies at the behest of Israeli-American billionaire Miriam Adelson and her late husband Sheldon, this time adding that he believes Adelson favors Israel over the United States. Here's a transcript of Trump's remarks. As president, I terminated the disastrous Iran nuclear deal, and ultimately I terminated Iran's nuclear program with things called B-2 bombers. It was swift and it was accurate and it was a military beauty. I authorized the spending of billions of dollars, which went to Israel's defense, as you know. And after years of broken promises from many other American presidents, you know that they kept promising, I never understood it until I got there. There was a lot of pressure put on these presidents. It was put on me too, but I didn't yield to the pressure. But every president for decades said, we're going to do it. The difference is I kept my promise and officially recognized the capital of Israel and moved the American embassy to Jerusalem. Isn't that right, Miriam? Look at Miriam. She's back there. Stand up. Miriam and Sheldon Adelson would come into the office and call me. They'd call me. I think they had more trips to the White House than anybody else, I guess. Look at her sitting there so innocently. Got $60 billion in the bank. $60 billion. And she loves, I think she said, no more. She loves Israel, but she loves it. And they would come in, and her husband was a very aggressive man, but I loved him. He was very aggressive, very supportive of me, And he'd call up, "Can I come over and see you?" And I'd say, "Sheldon, I'm the President of the United States. It doesn't work that way." He'd come in. But they were very responsible for so much, including getting me thinking about Golan Heights, which is probably one of the greatest things that ever happened. Miriam, stand up, please. She really is. I mean, she loves this country. She loves this country. Her and her husband are so incredible. We miss him so dearly. But I actually asked her, I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once. I said, "So Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel?" She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say. "We love you. Thank you, darling, for being here. That's a great honor. Great honor. She's a wonderful woman. She's a great woman." End quote. Sheldon Adelson reportedly gave Trump and the Republicans over $424 million in campaign funding from 2016 up until his death in 2021. His widow, Miriam, continued her husband's legacy and poured a further $100 million into Trump's 2024 presidential campaign. On the 2024 campaign trail, Trump also admitted to being controlled by Adelson cash. Here's a transcript of those remarks. "Just as I promised, I recognized Israel's eternal capital and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. Jerusalem became the capital. I also recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. You know, Miriam and Sheldon would come into the White House probably almost more than anybody outside of people who worked there. And they were always after, as soon as I'd give them something, always
Which
for
is
Israel.
wild to
As soon as
admit.
I'd give them something, they'd want something else. I'd say, 'Give me a couple of weeks, will you please?' But I gave them the Golan Heights. They never even asked for it. You know, for 72 years they've been trying to do the Golan Heights, right? And even Sheldon didn't have the nerve. But I said, you know what? I said to David Friedman, give me a quick lesson, like 5 minutes or less on the Golan Heights. And he did. And I said, let's do it. We got it done in about 15 minutes, right?" End quote. Legitimizing Israel's illegal annexation of the Golan Heights and moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem were two of the most controversial moves Trump made in Israel's favor during his first term, which have now been eclipsed by his backing the genocide in Gaza and his bombings of Iran and Yemen. And here he is, openly admitting that his billionaire Zionist mega-donors have been using the access their donations bought them to push him to take drastic action in favor of Israel. Just imagine for a second if someone had leaked documents to the press proving that Trump had received extensive financial backing from a Russian oligarch to whom he doled out political favors of immense geopolitical consequence. It would be the biggest scandal in the history of American politics, bar none. But because it's an Israeli oligarch, he can admit it openly and repeatedly without anyone backing an eye. During Trump's first term, his political rivals spent years pushing a bogus conspiracy theory that he was controlled by Vladimir Putin, despite his having spent that entire term aggressively ramping up Cold War hostilities against Russia. Entire political punditry careers were birthed trying to create a scandal out of a narrative that could be plainly seen as false just by looking at the movements of the U.S. war machine and Washington's actions against Moscow. But here's Trump openly admitting to bending over backwards to give an Israeli oligarch whatever she wants because she gave his campaign huge sums of money while pouring weapons into Israel to facilitate its mass atrocities and engaging in acts of war on Israel's behalf. And it barely makes a blip in mainstream Western politics or media. This is because mainstream Western politics and media understand that we are living in an unofficial oligarchic empire to which both the U.S. and Israel belong. They never acknowledge it, they never talk about it, but all high-level politicians, pundits, and operatives in the Western world understand that they serve a globe-spanning power structure run by a loose alliance of plutocrats and empire managers. They understand that states like Israel are a part of said power structure, while states like Russia, China, and Iran are not. So they spend their time normalizing the corruption and abuses of imperial member states, while facilitating the empire's efforts to attack and undermine the states that have successfully resisted being absorbed into the imperial power umbrella. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. The only thing I like about Donald Trump is his infantile tendency to say the quiet part out loud.
Right.
He advances the same kinds of abuses as his predecessors, who were no less corrupt and controlled, but he exposes the underlying mechanics of those abuses in ways that more refined presidents never would.
She's eloquent. I mean, it's just brilliant, you know, and that speech is wow. How many times are you going to admit that you're controlled by Israel and by Israel's biggest donor and supporter? And then he'll go off and do a speech about Bill Ackman. Here's another one where he's praising Dallas Mavericks owner. Don't forget that they orchestrated it so that she could buy an NBA team. And the plan is to move the Mavericks from Dallas to Vegas because that's
to the
where
Golan Heights.
That's where her headquarters is. But it's really funny because she used to own casinos. You know, they owned Las Vegas Sands, LVS. But they knocked the Sands casino down. I looked into their organization a long time ago. Miriam doesn't own any hotels in the United States anymore. She owns them in like Macau and Singapore. And that's where most of their money is coming from. All right. But they have a U.S. headquarters because allegedly they are connected to another organization that runs out of Israel. You know, I'm not going to exactly say which one. I'm sure you can guess. It begins with an M and it ends with a D. Or there's a separate third-party independent organization that they run that had connections to the Julian Assange case, believe it or not. They also potentially have had connections to the spy flights that have gone over Gaza because there was a Las Vegas company, like a weird charter company that rented planes. Interesting that that's where they're from. There's a lot of intersections that it's helpful for them to be in Vegas. Anyway, I digress. Right. So that reminder that they bought the Dallas Mavericks from Mark Cuban. It was weird how the whole sale went down and how they instantly shuffled off the best player to Los Angeles to the Lakers, and it hurt their team immensely. It also hurt the Lakers this year, but that was Luka Doncic. Sports, yes. So, showing Michael Tracy tweets, that's a foul. Sorry, Caitlin. But yes,
yeah, fuck you on that, Kate.
I love this. Trump says, I'm bought and owned by Miriam Adelson, the world's richest Israeli. And Democrats go, Trump is a Putin puppet. Trump, I do whatever she says. Democrats, a Russian secret agent. Trump, I'm controlled by the Israelis. Democrats, he's suspiciously close with many dictators, actually. Trump, I gave Miriam a foot rub last night. I don't feel good about it. Democrats, ooh, you know what would make him mad and hurt him politically? If we play along with those conspiracy theories about him and Jeffrey Epstein. Trump, I'm going to bomb Iran again. And that's pretty close to what's happening because God forbid the Democrats actually notice that he's subservient and owned by Israel. Because, you know, so are they. So they're not allowed, the noticers are not allowed to be noticing. So my answer to all of this, and Nico also did an interesting video over at Hotspot. My answer to all of that is fuck Israel, fuck Trump, fuck Adelson, and fuck you if you support any of this corrupt shit. And I stand by that. This 2-minute and 45-second video is kind of entertaining from Nico, so let's give that a watch there.
With this, but I actually asked her. I'm going to get her in trouble with this, but I actually asked her once. I said, so Miriam, I know you love Israel. What do you love more, the United States or Israel? She refused to answer. That might mean Israel, I must say.
Yep, I asked her, I said, Miriam, Israel or America? She didn't answer. Pretty sure that means Israel. And you know, some people might ask, Trump, don't you think it could be a little bit problematic that she gave you $100 million and she cares more about Israel's interests than the interests of America, the country that you're currently president of? You're doing a fantastic job, might I add. And my only response is this: if someone gave you $100 million, would you argue with them? I don't think so. Hell, I would put 2 Israeli flags behind me if she gave me another 100 million. I don't care. Israel, America, it's basically the same thing anyway. Just keep giving me money. And by the way, I just feel like this is just another distraction. We aren't really talking enough about how great of a job I'm doing. In fact, that's why Miriam gave me $100 million. She already knew I was going to be the greatest president of all time. So she gave me $100 million in 2024 for all the problems that I'm solving right now in 2025. And the solution is simple. If you want me to represent your interests the same way Miriam wanted me to represent Israel's interests, just give me $100 million. I'm not that complicated. I'm a businessman. By the way, one of the best businessmen who ever lived, indisputable. I know CNN doesn't want to admit it, but it's true. But Elon gave me $100 million, and he got his own department in the government. You see, I like to think of my policies like Walmart on Black Friday. Everything's for sale. I'm not picky. You pay me, you get what you want. I'm a very simple guy. I'm not that complicated. You pay me, get what you want. Israel, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Jelani. You know, that's a really handsome guy, that guy Jelani. Really
China.
Handsome, really astute fellow. Yeah, Jelani too.
Young, attractive guy, tough guy.
Handsome guy, by the way. Young, handsome.
What a nice look.
Okay, we're back. Maybe one of these days we won't have a crash.
And I'm not protecting anybody. I know I said I was going to release the files, but that's before I knew it was a Democrat conspiracy theory. So anything else is for sale, except for that.
Anything else except for that. Just and feed his family with crypto. Justin's son, finance guy, CZ. Like, there's oh my God, we're already having crashes. We are 22 minutes in and we're already having crashes. That is a bad omen. Hopefully we're better this time. And it
Usually gets better as we go.
And the crash gods will fix things for us. Come on, fam. This is just insufferable. It's not just Twitch, Stephanie.
Yep.
It's my OBS that's crashing. So it keeps coming back, thankfully.
Not the OBS, it's the connection to, it's like, I don't know, your internet spikes and then fucking
my upload speed
loses
dies,
connection. It's weird.
and it's a real problem. I'm sorry about all that, but
and it comes back.
the good thing is that
Weird.
we're recording on OBS, and we'll put the final recording out once it's done, as long as my computer doesn't reboot itself before the end of the stream. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
All right. So
shouldn't do that.
yeah, Miriam Adelson, she's not exactly our friend, as I don't think anybody is surprised by here. She's funding a lot of the initiatives that are problematic for the United States, including a lot of these organizations like Beitar, I'm sure she's contributing to, and Zionists of America. They own a large portion of the media in Israel, and then there's allegedly a connection to an intelligence agency, or maybe even a private intelligence agency that is run out of somewhere that they are connected to. Allegedly. And she's
Allegedly.
highly influential with Trump, basically because of her money. And I don't think that she's even exclusive to the Republicans necessarily. It's wherever she can get influence. And it just so happens that now Trump is the benefactor. I remember a long time ago, there's a tweet about him making fun of his now Secretary of State, Little Marco, for taking money from the Adelsons and basically being their bitch boy. And now he has fulfilled his destiny. All right. So
No, he's their bitch boy.
exactly. Well, we're certainly not going to get remonetized by YouTube for, maybe YouTube would like that, but we're not monetized over there. So if you're able to and of means, please support independent media by contributing through one of these other methods. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. You can go to ko-fi.com. It's ko-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. We're live over at IndieNewsNow.com, over at our self-hosted news website, and then at INNNewsletter.com or at IndieMediaToday.com over on Substack. And we're coming to a Substack newsletter.
Coming to
I got it.
Substack newsletter.
Go to my
near you.
website.
Oh yeah, that too. Go to my website. I did want to say hi to people over there in chat. I see Kameshwari Kate and Descent in Bloom and Jacqueline Jack is out there. Yep, I'll bet that Trump doesn't understand the territory of the female landscape. That's a pretty safe bet. You know, he's not one to take the time to learn the nuances, let's just say, I would guess. So that's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yes, I think that with the other segments, that might have been the light segment tonight, because while yes, it's sad to know that our country's been bought by this oligarch. That's nothing really new. It's just literally him admitting it out loud, and you can't believe that he's so brazen. But he's realized basically that, hey, nobody's stopping me.
Happen.
Nobody's stopping me.
Right.
And they're going to keep giving me money, and they're going to keep allowing me to do this, and they're not going to kick me out of the, well, then we'll keep going, and we'll praise Jelani. My God. You know, we had him on the terrorist watch list, right? Now he's our buddy because he's getting in line.
Nice, handsome guy.
Well, for now, until they realize that he's head chopping people that he may not necessarily like, that they may like, and that may be a problem, and he may end up being a
brave fighters of the Mujahideen.
Well, they'll have to go in then get him. Well, very similar to the way that bin Laden was an asset and an ally for decades, and then he turned, allegedly, or he was used as a scapegoat, more likely. You need to watch the James Corbett's 9/11 in 5 minutes, a conspiracy theory, if you have not already seen that. That's at thecorbettreport.com. It's one of the most legendary 5 minutes of video in the history of mankind. Maybe one night we'll play that over here, because it's worth the watch if you haven't seen it. But I want to get into our weekly Fuck Israel segment. So I don't know if you did have time to add to the soundboard. I'm going to jump into the first part of Fuck Israel. Nice. Yeah. Fuck Israel. So we had the update that we did not want to see on Monday, I think it was. This was actually Thursday. But when we were here last week, Reef reported that, oh my goodness, it looks like he's on a list to get out. Dr. Hussam Abu Safia. We've been talking about this man all year long. That he worked at Kamal Adwan Hospital, and he was operating, and they literally ordered him out of the hospital, and he got into the tank to talk to the soldiers and has not been seen since, other than maybe a photo or two. But he's been in a torture prison for the last 10 months. And we were hoping that with the quote unquote ceasefire, and I said it last week, until this man is free, it's bullshit. It's not really a ceasefire. They're holding on to over 100 doctors and medical personnel because they certainly don't want to unleash a wave of people who could actually rehabilitate the people that have been injured and hurt by bombs. They also are stopping aid from going back in now. They're claiming that Hamas violated the ceasefire, which is hilarious because they never did ceasefire. But I want to read this because this is important. The family of Dr. Hussam Abu Safia confirms that the Israeli court has extended his administrative detention for another 6 months, despite his name having been previously appearing on those discussed for release. The family expresses deep concern over his continued detention and reaffirms full trust in the legal team, don't know why, and all humanitarian efforts working toward his freedom. The family also calls on relevant institutions, human rights organizations, and the negotiating parties to actively address his case and work toward his immediate release, which we've been doing for a long time now. Free Dr. Abu Safia. And there's plenty of people posting graphics and hashtags and the like. So the first article I brought was a story called The Infuriating Case of Dr. Hussam Abu Safia from a publication called Palestine Will Be Free. Subscribe to them, support independent media. All right. On Thursday, an Israeli kangaroo court extended Dr. Hussam Abu Safia's detention in Israel's rape and torture dungeons. Yes, they're rape and torture dungeons. And there's a link there with documentation there for another 6 months. Kidnapped from his hospital on December 27, 2024, for not giving in to Israeli demands to shut it down and go home, Dr. Abu Safia has been languishing in the occupation's notorious hellholes ever since. At the time of Dr. Abu Safia's abduction from Kamal Adwan Hospital, the last one functioning in northern Gaza at the time, after a months-long Israeli attempt to ethnically cleanse the top half of the enclave as part of the ghastly General's Plan, he, along with several members of the hospital staff, including doctors, nurses, medical techs, patients, terrorists of the Israeli occupation forces, stripped them naked and sexually abused them. It took several days before the Israelis even acknowledged that they had indeed kidnapped Dr. Abu Safia, even though he was last seen walking into an Israeli tank and speaking to a Zionist soldier. That very famous shot. That and the one of him standing in the alley or across from the tank facing it. It wasn't until February that Dr. Abu Safia, the then acting director of Kamal Adwan Hospital, after the previous incumbent was also abducted in early 2024, was allowed legal counsel weeks, a full 47 days after his abduction. No right to a speedy trial there. The legal counsel revealed that the doctor was, quote, subjected to various forms of torture and inhuman and degrading treatment, unquote. Why? The next significant update on Dr. Abu Safia came only in July, when his lawyer revealed that he had lost 40% of his body weight and was not in good condition due to relentless physical abuse, as if losing 40% of your body weight wouldn't be enough to cause not good condition. Quote, Dr. Abu Safia is not okay. On July 14th, following her visit to the doctor's cell in Ophir prison, he's lost over 40 kilograms or 40 stone. 2 stone. 20 kilograms is stone. More than 1/3 of his body weight. Oh my God. At the time of his arrest, he weighed 100 kilograms. Today, he weighs no more than 60. Okay. Qassem recounted harrowing testimony of abuse. All right. He was severely beaten, according to one of his roommates. All right. That his room was specifically raided. He was brutally assaulted in the chest area, sustained severe bruises to the face, head, back, and neck. 30 minutes of beating him. He requested medical care, proper testing, and to be examined by a cardiologist, but of course his request was denied. He suffers from an irregular heartbeat. His glasses were broken, which of course he had just recently even gotten in the first place. He's still wearing winter clothes while enduring starvation, torture, solitary, and total deprivation, buried underground with no exposure to sunlight. Dr. Hussam Abu Safia, like all Palestinian detainees, is not okay. And let's not, overstate his case as opposed to the hundreds of others that are being held captive without trial, charge, or, it's It's crazy. And again, it's a systematic attack on the healthcare system, specifically so that they can't rehabilitate their wounded. In a petition, all right, Amnesty International has called the doctor's detention part of Israel's systematic targeting of Palestinian health workers. Dr. Abu Safia's arrest and ongoing arbitrary detention without charges or trial based on the unlawful combatants law is a reflection of Israel's systematic targeting of Palestinian health workers and the decimation of the healthcare system in Gaza in order to inflict conditions of life calculated to bring about the physical destruction of Palestinians. That's called genocide. On the latest extension of his detention, nice rhyming word there, by the occupation's kangaroo courts, Issam Yunus, who is the director of Al-Mizan, a Gaza-based human rights organization, said that Dr. Abu Safia is being, quote, held as a hostage, unquote, which he is. Yeah. Today's decision to extend Dr. Abu Safia's detention is completely baseless and further confirms that he is being held as a hostage. Still not charged with any crime. The doctor keeps asking the Israelis why he's being incarcerated. Quote, he's never been charged, was initially denied access to legal counsel, has endured inhumane treatment ever since his abduction, including torture and starvation, which has taken a serious toll on his physical well-being. Man, he sounds like Julian Assange.
Yep.
Dr. Abu Safia was not allowed to attend in person, but our lawyer said that he was clearly desperate to be released. When he was given the chance to speak, he repeated that he's done nothing wrong and asked the court why he's been detained in the first place. Just to remind people, Palestine Will Be Free wrote an article back in July about how Israel is routinely raping Palestinians in its torture dungeons with receipts. A journalist who was abducted from Tulkarem in West Bank last year has revealed the horrific abuse, including degrading assaults with hard objects amounting to rape and sexual torture, to which Palestinians in Israeli torture dungeons have been routinely subjected to, especially after October 7th. But again, it didn't start October 7th there either. Back to the doctor. Even before his incarceration, Dr. Abu Safia endured Herculean burdens, both personal and professional, as the steward of northern Gaza's last functioning hospital. In a bid to shut it down, the Israelis besieged Kamal Adwan Hospital for nearly 3 months, dropping bombs on it from drones and wheeled robots, and positioned snipers to shoot anyone entering or leaving the hospital. The indiscriminate bombings in the vicinity of the hospital led to the martyrdom of his son Ibrahim. The 20-year-old had wished to follow in his father's footsteps and study medicine, but you know the Israelis can't allow for any Palestinian doctors. The 20-year-old wished to follow, like I said. His life was cut short. Ibrahim was buried hastily near the hospital. A tearful Abu Safia led the funeral prayers for his young son. Wow.
Allahu Akbar. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Dr. Abu Safia himself was injured in one of dozens of attacks in the hospital, sending messages from a hospital bed while grimacing in pain. But the determined doctor never gave in to the demands of the genocide heirs, fulfilling his humanitarian duties while recovering from his own injuries. Just a remarkable individual. That's why they're torturing him. Issuing daily updates on the state of the besieged hospital via his Instagram account, the doctor filmed Israeli drones dropping bombs directly on the hospital and in its vicinity. He captured footage of automated vehicles dropping bombs inside the hospital and made fervent pleas for help when the Israelis bombed the hospital's generators, which powered the oxygen tanks one night.
Yep.
Someone over on Substack saying they're using dogs. And yes, I didn't bring that story, but yes, allegedly they were using dogs to rape the humans, which is so disgusting. 10 months after his abduction, the Israelis have provided no legal basis for Dr. Abu Safia's continued incarceration. It's because they don't have one. It's also because they don't need to. Israeli impunity has no parallel in history. The occupation forces accused him of being a terrorist and holding a rank in Hamas, but they labeled his hospital a Hamas terrorist stronghold. But to this day, they have not been able to produce a single shred of evidence for their egregious accusations. An honorable civilian, Dr. Abu Safia, has no business being in prison. He should have long been released. And I will say that, I know Eva Bartlett, friend of the show, also personally knows Dr. Abu Safia, and everyone that served alongside him says the same thing about this guy. However, the Israelis refused to release him in the prisoner exchanges, quote unquote, earlier this year, and have insisted upon keeping him behind bars even during the ongoing exchange. He has no ties to the resistance. Dr. Abu Safia's record is public. International humanitarian organizations and numerous doctors like Yipeng Ji have called for his immediate release, but the Israelis remain adamant. I remember we covered the campaign where everyone was holding up the signs, the free Dr. Abu Safia. I think that was in January or February.
Right.
This is an utter moral outrage. This is yet another message from the Israelis that resistance, even in the form of medical care for the victims of their barbarism, is a punishable crime by torture. The only acceptable Palestinians are those who either leave or die. Everyone else is a quote-unquote terrorist. Dr. Abu Safia's continued imprisonment is a deliberate act of terror by the Jewish supremacists in Tel Aviv, who want nothing but complete submission and utter annihilation of the Palestinians. And again, that's under the classification of genocide. Dr. Abu Safia's crime is refusing to abandon the sick and dying, to uphold his Hippocratic oath as a doctor under fire, to remain human in a sea of barbarism. In abusing him, Israelis seek vengeance against a man who bore witness, who refused to look away, who refused to leave or die. The world must not look away either, and we're not. We must bear witness to the gut-wrenching barbarism inflicted on Dr. Abu Safia and many others, and do everything within our power to help free him and all of them. His predicament is a mirror reflecting the moral rot we're sliding deeper into with each passing day of unchecked Israeli impunity. And again, sadly, as they said that their paid subscriptions have dried up, but this was an outstanding article recapping the story and speaking on behalf of the good doctor, and much appreciated this publication and this article. So thank you, and free Dr. Hussam Abu Safia right now. Fuck Israel. Free him right fucking now. Like, more war crimes, like I said. And that's what this segment is war, Israel's war crimes this week. Because every week they fucking do this. But this was like they dangled the carrot in front of everyone and got everyone's hopes up that maybe. But like we said last week, his name was on a list, but that was, I think, a list that was submitted by the Palestinians on who they wanted. I don't believe it was ever put on a list by Israel that they had ever intended to give him back. And fuck Israel for that. Because, again, they're just torturing him just to torture him. But we got a lot more fuck Israel.
Yep.
Because a lot happened this week. So this is a publication I am a fan of called Israel Palestine News. I wish they didn't show stuff from Ryan Grimm because he sucks. But and the whole drop site news organization is a problem for me. But they do a daily recap that I thought was excellent, and I'm going to bring a couple of them today. This one was from last Tuesday, the 14th. All right. And it has a very long, extensive list of links and sites and receipts to check out. And it's very much like I remember I was growing up an ESPN fan, and ESPN.com was one of my favorite websites to read and read columnists from. A guy by the name of Buster Olney wrote a Sunday column that had just like kind of odds and ends. It was almost like Caitlin Johnstone notes from the edge of the narrative matrix with just different links. It may be somewhat connected, but also disconnected and just rando stuff. So this one, of course, is Palestinian hostages released into devastation and heartbreak. This was day 5 of the quote-unquote ceasefire. Middle East Eye documenting a freed prisoner who learned that his family were killed just weeks before his release and documenting his pain. All right. Day 738 of Israel's latest war on Gaza from ifamericans.knew.com. Civil defense workers and loved ones continue to dig out bodies of Palestinians that were buried under the rubble during the war. The number of known starvation or malnutrition deaths stands at 463, including 157 children. Note, only the dead who are brought to the hospitals are even included in the official fatality count. And at this point, most of the dead being recorded have been recovered from under rubble. Others have succumbed to earlier injuries. Here's a scene of a father and child walking past destroyed homes in Sabra. All right, here was a story about Israel killing 7 Palestinians Tuesday in violation of the ceasefire. Again, every ceasefire is Palestinians cease and Israeli fires. If Americans knew, refers, right? Hostage exchange news that If Americans Knew refers to the imprisoned Palestinians as hostages instead of prisoners for several reasons. They're being held by the Israeli military court system, which human rights groups have characterized as part of an apartheid system. So they hedge that they're all captives, they're all hostages. And they confess under torture that 99.6% of cases end in conviction. It's not really a fair trial. It's a foregone conclusion. Many Palestinians and supporters
consider kangaroo court.
Yes, they consider the imprisoned to be political prisoners or hostages because they view their arrest as a tool to enforce Israel's occupation and suppress resistance. So we do have that Israel did free nearly 2,000 Palestinian hostages under the Gaza ceasefire deal. And there were a ton of joyous reunions and videos of people who had been imprisoned for years or decades.
And told all of their family members were killed.
Yes.
That kind of stuff.
Right. That's the guy who was told that his family was killed. All right. Right. If you show any support for a terrorist group. Yeah. Israeli drones flew over a gathering of Palestinians in the West Bank as they awaited the arrival of the released hostages, dropping leaflets that read, "We are watching you everywhere. If you show any support for a terrorist group, you will expose yourself to arrest and punishment." Wow. Big Brother is always watching. Right? Of course, the released Palestinians showed signs of starvation and beatings. Most of the Palestinian men released in the West Bank looked to be in bad shape. Their cheekbones jutted out, some bearing the marks of recent beatings, a few unable to walk on their own without being propped up by their relatives. Israel forbade people from celebrating the release on Monday, firing tear gas at family members and journalists waiting near Ophir prison. A flyer distributed by the Israeli military warned again, we're surveilling you everywhere. No Palestinian flags were allowed to be raised because we've covered that before. I know Reef and Colin covered that Palestinian flags are outlawed in Israel. It's against the law.
Yep.
Before Monday's release, over 11,000 Palestinians were held in Israeli prisons, according to statistics from the Israeli NGO Hamoked in October 2025. At least 3,500 of those are held in administrative detention without trial. But let's keep sending them billions of dollars. An Israeli military database has indicated that only a quarter of those detained in Gaza were even classified as fighters. Once a Palestinian captive is released, that's it, right? Well, no. Israel tends to rearrest Palestinians shortly after they're freed in captive swaps. This is another little dirty secret that they don't talk about. Just after October 7th in November of 2023, Israel released 240 Palestinian hostages in a swap for Israeli captives held by Hamas in Gaza as part of a temporary ceasefire deal. Weeks later, Israel rearrested 30 of those 240. We have the freed Israeli hostage saying that food ran low when, of course, aid was blocked, but that they were feeding him well, including giving him chicken, feeding him with their own food. The Israelis certainly aren't doing that.
No.
All right, there's a couple of pictures of Palestinians being released. All right, then, again, they recap Gaza news and headlines. And look at that photo. God almighty. Again, Sabra. Good luck trying to find a place to stay there. No electricity, no running water, no heavy equipment and machinery, and nothing but devastation and destruction all around. There's not a safe structure you can stay in there. If you don't have a tent, where do you sleep?
Right.
That photo was from October 12th, after the ceasefire agreement. God. U.S. military contractors say that they're not finished feeding Gaza amid ongoing uncertainty about the future of a controversial Israel-approved aid distribution scheme. On Monday, one of its lead contractors, UG Solutions, said it will keep working in the region. So they pulled the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, but the people behind it, they're staying. Despite pushback from the Palestinian political parties, I don't even know who they are, and the international aid community, critics said, of course, that in addition to violating humanitarian principles by deployed armed guards, the GHF served as a tool of Israeli policy by forcing Palestinians to make miles-long treks to southern Gaza, during which thousands were shot and others starved to death. Palestinians actually speaking to the AP on Sunday said that at least 3 GHF aid sites had been abandoned as a condition of the ceasefire and hostage handover between Israel and Hamas. In a statement to the propaganda outlet, however, the foundation cast the closure of the sites as a temporary pause. Remember, we covered that last Sunday, that the Israeli newspapers were even reporting that this was not a permanent, anywhere close to a permanent ceasefire,
right,
and that it was a temporary condition. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said that they're not finished destroying Gaza, because you can see that they have left some buildings half standing, I guess. And here's a reminder that Hamas did not surrender in this latest ceasefire, quote unquote, whatever deal you want to call this. The Palestinian resistance didn't surrender and didn't agree to disarmament or demilitarization. All right, quote, a nuclear armed serial killer masquerading as a nation state with the full backing of the United States, has failed to impose a surrender on Palestinians wearing Adidas flip-flops, tracksuits, and operating with largely domestically manufactured weapons, said a CIA asset founder of DropSite News. Brief analysis of Trump's Monday statements. Okay, we've got that broken down. Again, there's just so much stuff chock full of these articles, and they go on and on and on. And this is what I find most interesting. They recap, here's what Israelis are reading. And they go to the Israeli newspapers and the Israeli TV, and they tell us what they're saying to their own population. Because very often, what they tell us in the United States and the UK and Canada is a very watered-down version. Because it can't make them seem that they are as barbaric, genocidal, and maniacal as they actually are. But they are. Yeah. Sorry. And then there's, of course, also what we predicted and what Mondo Weiss predicted last week, which was how Israel was going to claim that Hamas was the violator of the ceasefire, which was that the 24 slain hostages still left behind, they haven't been able to deliver them quickly enough because they're buried under rubble. Okay, the scenario Israel had long prepared for has come to pass. Hamas violated the agreement from the very start, announcing the return of only 4 deceased hostages out of the 28 it holds in the Gaza Strip. All right. The breach had become known. Intensive efforts have been underway at every level to compel the terror group to fulfill its commitments. You mean the resistance group that's legal and under UN Geneva Convention decree? Armed resistance, when people are occupied, resistance is justified. Again, in reality, Hamas had indicated from the beginning of the ceasefire that they didn't sign of the possibility that not all the remains of the hostages would be located by their arbitrary deadline. At the same time, Israel violated the ceasefire by killing at least 7 Palestinians in Gaza, while 154 of the promised Palestinian hostages were not released back into their homelands, but were exiled. So just some of the headlines from Israeli media. This is the propaganda that they are subjected to. And it's important to understand how propagandized they are. The Red Cross, returning Israeli hostages' bodies will take time. Some may never be found. The IDF officials are saying that they're recommending the Rafah crossing staying shut until the 24 bodies are returned. Trump earns fresh comparisons to Cyrus the Great as the last living hostages return home. Their narrative is insane. All right. And then, of course, after 2 years of dodging deals, Netanyahu allies claim that he had a plan all along. Which was to get Trump to claim ownership of it. Stories about the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem. And just how Israel is destroying that part of the country. Every day they have an article this in-depth. Again, this was just from October 14th. 1 day's worth. Israeli soldiers torched food, homes, and a critical sewage treatment plant in the wake of the ceasefire agreement. Because, of course they did.
I've been doing more since then. So,
all right. Here are the official statistics, right? The 68,921 killed and 180,000 injured. Likely it's 10 times that. More than 20,000 children and 23,000 women of that 67,000. Again, the Gaza Health Ministry has been destroyed, so therefore they can't maintain accurate records and counts. Every baby that's born is born right now with no birth certificate and no count. There's no way they could accurately count how many people there are there. Right, at least 80,000 Palestinians and 3,000 Israelis have been killed by someone from the other side since 2000, according to this. And oh, look at that disproportionate number. Even with the 1,300 Israelis that were killed with it throughout 2023, they killed 22,000 Palestinians and another 24,000 and another 22,000. That's the official number, the one on that they can find records of the people that were counted. But I read a tweet today by Mossab Abu Toha, who was literally documenting family trees of people that Israel was wiping out in real time.
Yeah.
So here was the one from yesterday. Israel massacres family of 11 in Gaza. Ceasefire day 8. All right, in spite of the ceasefire. 29 martyrs arrived at Gaza Strip hospitals over the past 48 hours. In addition, 11 martyrs are under the rubble in the Abu Shaban massacre and have yet to be recovered. Therefore, they were not included in these statistics. Since the ceasefire went into effect on October 11th, now at least 27 Palestinians have been killed by Israeli attacks and 143 have been wounded. And again, every day, Gaza News and headlines, and they have sections. Israel implementing a shoot-on-sight policy at Gaza yellow line. All right, that's more than half of Gaza already. So cross that line, you'll be shot on sight. The line would now be marked on the ground with the aim of warning Hamas militants and Gaza residents, at least they're acknowledging that there are Gaza residents, that breaches or attempts to cross the line will be met with gunfire. They're used to that. But it ain't just breaches across the line, of course. World Food Program said that 9 bakeries are currently operational in all of Gaza to serve 1.5 million remaining people, producing over 100,000 bundles of bread daily, each weighing 2 kilograms and feeding a family of 5 for a day. Around 500,000 people out of Gaza's total population of over 2 million. Well, that's what we expect it was, but we don't know. World Food Program, again run by CIA agent Chef Jose Andres, hopes to increase the number of bakeries to 30 across Gaza. Remember, this is all being run basically by CIA. You have UNRWA calling for shelter supplies to be allowed into Gaza. Again, no tents are there, no blankets. They can't stay warm and they can't stay dry. UNRWA has what's needed, sitting just a few hours away, and has the teams and infrastructure to distribute it. Israeli soldiers reveal thousands of tons of aid buried and burned in Gaza as famine took over the strip. And of course, blaming Hamas for causing the famine. There's a line of trucks that was from August 6th at the Rafah crossing. But tell me how they're not blocking the aid trucks, right? You have the Palestinian factions that continue to search for bodies of Israeli captives in Gaza because they have to deliver them. The footage showed only limited excavation work due to the lack of resources. Of course, they don't have any trucks. They don't have any heavy equipment to dig through rubble. Israel, of course, is not cooperating in the search for captive remains. What a shock. The Israeli government holding its ground, accusing Hamas of knowing where the captives' bodies are or refusing or procrastinating in retrieving those bodies. And that fuels the anger and the pressure domestically. But on the other hand, everyone knew that this was going to be a difficult task. In fact, when Israeli soldiers were detonating tons of explosives to level entire neighborhoods and communities, there were warnings that this was going to complicate the search for the bodies of Israeli captives, and that's exactly what you see. Now, most importantly, Israel is not cooperating with countries that are lending to help to possibly look for those remains. Why wouldn't they want to help recover their own bodies? Turkey, for example, was ready to send 81 experts in the retrieval of bodies, and Israel, of course, has not allowed them to enter. How convenient. It also whatever that is. Oh, that's this down here. It also has not allowed Turkey to provide equipment, I heard that could possibly facilitate that. Israel gave Hamas a deadline until next Tuesday to hand over all the bodies. Where are the bodies, Garth? All right, despite reports of understanding on both the Israeli and American sides that the search for bodies could take weeks or even months, and that some may never be recovered. So again, more footage of Palestinians returning to their homes. This was on October 10th in Gaza City. 80% of all the buildings are destroyed. And the ones that are left standing are severely damaged and need to be condemned. Gaza authorities accuse Israel of stealing organs from released Palestinian bodies. This is alleged, but we're being told that they're literally returning bodies packed with cotton. Many corpses were missing, including eyes, corneas, and other organs. Palestinian official urged the international community and human rights organizations to investigate and hold Israel accountable, but of course we know they won't. And this was happening before October 7th. Look up Israel harvesting Palestinian organs. This is not a new thing. Go start over on Rumble. 2.2 million started, 1.5 million remaining. That means 700,000 dead. And yes, that is awful, Descent in Bloom. I'm sorry to have to go through all this, but this is reality, and this is the kind of stuff that, like I say in the trailer, in the teaser, this is what corporate media won't show. What they don't want people to see. But we have to see it. All right. Israeli forces shoot and abduct 2 Palestinians near Ramallah. They abduct 5 in Nablus and Hebron and injure others in Bethlehem. Again, remember, there's no Hamas there. This is the West Bank. ICC rejects the Israel appeal bid over the arrest warrants. Good. Right? And so, again, you just go through this on a daily basis and you shake your head. Here's what Israeli media is telling their people today, that Witkoff and Kushner on Israel's strike in Qatar, Trump felt like the Israelis were getting a little bit out of control. A little bit.
A little bit.
Fuck Israel.
A little bit out of control. It's like they didn't get their cookie and nap, so they're having a tantrum.
Okay, this one's incredible. The State Department says the United States has informed the guarantor nations of the Gaza peace agreement of the credible reports indicating an imminent ceasefire violation by Hamas against the people of Gaza. This planned attack against Palestinian civilians would constitute a direct and grave violation of the ceasefire agreement that they never agreed to, and undermine the significant progress achieved through mediation efforts that they weren't invited to participate in. The guarantors demand Hamas.
How many of you kids in the chat know that they didn't sign this agreement? They didn't do that.
The guarantors demand Hamas uphold its obligations under the ceasefire terms by decree. Should Hamas proceed with this attack, measures will be taken to protect the people of Gaza and preserve the integrity of the ceasefire. So now, Israel is protecting the people of Gaza from Hamas? The United States and other guarantors remain resolute in our commitment to ensuring the safety of civilians. Palestinian civilians, they won't even say maintaining calm on the ground and advancing peace and prosperity for the people of Gaza and the region as a whole. War is peace. Professor Saeed Mohammed Marandi, the genocidal U.S. and Zionist regimes want more blood. Middle East Observer, USA, measures will be taken to protect the people of Gaza. Lol. So they're restarting the war under the pretext of protecting Gaza now? By the way, war is restarting, but not the genocidal war. It'll be like in Lebanon. War to prevent reconstruction and war on the resistance fighters and their families. Much less pressure and killing, but war nonetheless. Fuck Israel. But we've got more. Remember how Israelis claim that that Palestinians use civilians as human shields? Here's one.
Yep.
A video of Israeli settlers using a baby to block a truckload of humanitarian aid to go to Gaza.
Jesus Christ.
This is real.
חטופים חללים עדיין שם. אין שום סיבה בעולם שאנחנו נעביר סיוע לחמאס.
They're saying prayers.
אין סיבה. אם חמאס מפר את ההסכם, אנחנו לא צריכים לקיים אותו.
They're just keeping the baby there.
אנחנו לא צריכים לחזק את חמאס, אנחנו לא צריכים לקחת בזה חלק, שום סיוע לא צריך לעבור עד שכל אחינו ישובו לקבורה.
They're willing to put their children in harm's way, potentially.
זה שקר. זה שקר שהם לא יודעים איפה הגופה של הדר גולדין, וזה שקר שהם לא יודעים איפה החללים. חטופים
Disgusting. Fuck Israel. And fuck the Israeli civilians that support this. Okay, because of this. And we're dropping frames again, so I'm going to wait because it's going to probably crash out again. Oh, man. I'm so frustrated by this damn stuff. I literally rebooted my internet right before we went live. But of course, fuck Israel.
Yep.
And because I say fuck Israel, I'm guessing is what's going on here. But I don't know. Because I don't know what the problem is. My cable company claims nothing's wrong. It's hilarious. Anyway, I don't know if we're live, where we're live. I know we're live on YouTube and on Substack, probably on Rumble. Thank you for everyone who's sticking with us through these challenges. But Richard Medhurst brings this tweet. Israel tortured and mutilated these Palestinians so badly that their bodies are unrecognizable. A public appeal has been set up in Gaza, showing photos of some of the remains on a screen in the hopes of some people can identify them or recognize missing family members. So here's a picture of one of those remains on screen with people sitting around, standing from a picture from the front of the stage, looking at the crowd of people identifying the remains. This is real. This happened. And now I'm going to show you one of the most horrific pictures that I think I've ever seen. I'm sorry, but I have to. Run over by a tank. Notice the track marks. Notice that he's bound on the neck. Notice that his hands are tied behind his back, zip tied, and that he's naked. This is what Israel does. This is barbaric. This is disgusting. And this isn't the only one. Okay. So I'm surprised Twitter's even allowed that up as long as they have. I'm sorry, but we had to, because fuck Israel. They did that. Here's another one. I'm Kathy, Manufacturing Dissent. We've talked about her before. We've covered some of her posts and videos. She says, I'm just speechless. I don't know how Palestinians are able to endure so much grief and pain. This was, I believe, his family. His neck showed marks of hanging. His legs were crushed by tank tracks. The family of martyred Palestinian hostage, Mahmoud Ismail Shabbat, 34 years old, from northern Gaza, identified his body after it was held by the Israeli occupation for nearly 2 years. His body bore clear signs of torture. His hands and feet were tied, his face disfigured, and bullet wounds scattered across his body. His family recognized him by the scar left from a previous head surgery. Where is the world? His mother cried. Our hostages returned, tortured, and broken, while theirs are received with food and water and respect.
تعريض للشكل، إصابات، طقش في الوجه، جرح الرجلين من الجنازير، اليدين مكلبشات، إصابة في الرأس، عازمينه زي عدم الحبل على رقبته.
أنا جيت أتأكد لأنه في عملية في راسه. عنده عملية في هنا، في عملية هيك أحد على راسه دانه اليمين. تعرفت عليه وعرفت وخدته. رقبته من هذا محطوط عليه حبل أظني. وبعدين هاي ما بكلبش ومطبوخ طخ.
Handcuffed and shot.
عريان
ليش هيك؟ اما هم اسراهم بخبوهم معفزين مكرمين ولابسين ومتلبسين
Well dressed, fed, given something to drink. They give the Israeli captives their own food that they are being starved from.
Yeah.
And then there's this story. Holy shit. You notice that this guy has no eyes.
Yep.
I was brutally tortured inside Israeli jails. They electrocuted my eyes so that I lost them. How is this not the lead story on every news broadcast around the world? 28-year-old Mahmoud Abu Faul lost both his eyesight and leg to Israeli brutality. His leg was amputated after a 2015 airstrike, and he later went blind from severe torture and electric shocks in prison after being abducted from Kamal Adwan Hospital last year, as Dr. Abu Safia was stationed at. After 8 months of unimaginable suffering, he was released blind, homeless, and living in a tent. All he asks now is the chance to travel abroad for treatment, wishing he could see his family again, even with one eye. Just disgraceful.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I think this is what you... And then on top of it, there was this video, I thought I had it, that you had sent me.
It's right underneath it, should be.
Is it? Oh, there it is. Okay. For those questioning his story, here's his own voice. Now, what had happened was Israel decided to have a little game and use AI to put eyes on this cat and say that Pallywood was lying about this whole story and that he actually was never tortured and has eyes and can see just fine. You're being misled and lied to. So Gaza Notifications puts up a video. For those questioning Mahmoud's story, here's his own voice. In this video, Mahmoud Abu Faul recounts how he lost his eyesight under severe torture and electric shocks inside Israeli prisons. These are not claims, they're lived realities of countless Palestinians enduring systematic abuse. Denying survivors' testimonies doesn't erase their pain, it only exposes the cruelty of those who try to silence them. So we got to give this guy a minute and change.
صار عيوني يدخلوا في بعض. أنا الأسير المحرر محمود أبو فول من شمال غزة تعرضت للتعذيب أكثر من مرة. ظروف كانت صعبة جدا علي من ناحية إني أنا بدي مثلا حد يعيني أوصل حالي على كانت الحادثة هذه صعبة جدا علي.
God forbid I played the video of a Palestinian hostage. That's not allowed. That's not permitted.
بعديها لو فقدت بصري بعد تقريبا ساعتين صارت هي متفتشة معي صار عيوني يدخلوا في بعض. أنا الأسير المحرر محمود أبو فول من شمال غزة تعرضت للتعذيب أكثر من مرة. ظروف كانت صعبة جدا علي من ناحية إني أنا بدي مثلا حد يعيني أوصل حالي على
Get to the bathroom is a challenge. This incident was very difficult for me. I would imagine so, yeah.
كم يوم أسبوع.
It's an outrage.
لكن للأسف الإشي طوّل. بوجه رسالة وناشد العالم أجمع توقف إلى جانبنا. جانب كل أسير فلسطيني وكل جريح فلسطيني يعاني. لأنه الآن في غزة لم يتوفر علاج لنا بالمرة. لزقات عينين إحنا هاي اليوم.
Even dressings for my eyes are extremely difficult to find.
كل شيء معوض.
By design, by Israel's design.
ما يفقدوا من أعضاء جسد. نفسي وأمنية حياتي.
I wish in life to be able to see that's all around me, especially my parents, who was afraid I would be missing. Awful. Awful. Just
بعديها
go ahead. Stand by that. Justify murdering people and blinding people. Fuck Israel. And fuck anyone that supports that shit. Sorry, that was an exceptionally long fuck Israel segment, but again, we got to do this every week because they keep doing this and it needs to be documented. And so few people are getting into the weeds to cover because they're doing so many different things that it's so hard to cover it all. So thank you for sticking with us. I apologize that it's so brutal, but that's their fault, not mine. I'm just showing their brutality. But if you're able to, in a means, please support independent media like this that does show you the stories that corporate media won't show you. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. At IndieNewsNow.com, that's our self-hosted website. Over at INNNewsletter.com, we'll be live there in about an hour. And at IndieMediaToday.com, where we've been live right now. Thank you over on Substack, everyone, for sticking with us as my internet keeps going down and this stream keeps dropping and then picking back up immediately afterwards. So if you see another hesitation, another pause, just stick with us. It picks back up. If it doesn't, we're recording and all the clips will be up this week at IndieMediaToday.com and at the INN YouTube. All right. Jacqueline Jack, does the Geneva Convention, as useless as it is, apply to armed personnel only? What protections do civilians have? Yes, they're absolutely protected under that, but Israel is ignoring the Geneva Convention.
Yeah, but they don't do shit. Yeah.
More war crimes that go
and the
without
fucking
justice.
Hague ain't doing nothing. Hague's already called it a genocide. Hasn't actually done anything about it.
Go start, fuck Israel.
So...
just again, I very interesting that my internet seems to go down during that segment.
Yeah, it'll be fine during boats and the rest of the show.
Likely. I don't even want to promise that yet, but I got quite a few things to get to still. So let's do that. So first off, Descendant Bloom's in chat right now. She wrote an article this week, or actually, 6 days ago. I think she's written 4 articles since then. Just a machine in putting out content about really important topics. But I think that part of what she wrote here got missed and lost in the sauce this week. And she's been talking about election integrity and about our machines. And her article about the machines, I believe, is one of the articles that I had found early on, talking about this guy, Jack Cobb, and how his certification was bogus and that he was getting the testing software from the companies that he was allegedly supposed to be certifying and testing, which is totally dirty. Well, there's a follow-up to that, and that is that Dominion voting systems, which very famously popped up in the 2020 election and sued Fox News and got a massive settlement out of Fox News. Dominion Voting Systems was sold. So I'm not going to read this whole article, but I encourage everyone to. I'm going to go into a good portion of it. And I want to talk about the oligarch that bought this company and its software, and a little bit of what Descendant Bloom thinks their intent is, because she thinks that she's figured out what their game is. So the subtitle is that they told us elections were rigged. Then they cloned stolen voting software in 2020. Then they bought the voting machines. All right. Scott Leyendecker, a longtime Republican operative with deep ties to Trump's political network, already controlled the only digital poll books that are literally just giant iPads used to verify voter identities across much of the country through his company, No Inc. Knowing that alone gave him massive influence over who even gets in the door to vote in many places. Where used, it gives his company gatekeeper powers, deciding who gets in and who doesn't. Now, after acquiring Dominion Voting Systems, which he is renaming to Liberty Vote, my God, he controls the voting machines used in over half of the United States. Nothing to see here. In his first official statement after acquiring Dominion, Leyendecker pledged that he will follow Trump's executive order, preserving and protecting the integrity of American elections from March. This is how autocracies are built. Control the rules, control the tools, declare the outcome. It's not a conspiracy theory, it's a business model. So, what are we talking about? By the way, this is Scott Leyendecker. Looks a little like Dr. Evil, doesn't he? The SAVE Act 2.0. Despite the name, that executive order was not written to uphold election integrity, as it usually happens. The name in the acronym is written to undermine exactly what it's designed to prevent. Despite the name, again, it's just the infamous SAVE Act rebranded and shoved through the Oval Office because they haven't been able to pass it through Congress. Leyendecker is eager to be the first in line to enforce Trump's new unconstitutional rules from this order into our elections, stating that they have to have a passport, some ID compliant with the requirements of the Real ID Act, an official military ID card that indicates that the applicant is a citizen of the U.S., or a valid federal or state government-issued photo ID only if such ID indicates that the applicant is a citizen or if such ID is otherwise accompanied by proof of citizenship. Never mind that the fact that a federal judge has blocked parts of this already and that election experts say it's unconstitutional. See, the SAVE Act gets a lot of attention in the media because it'll take away eligible Americans' ability to vote because it requires in-person registration with specific documentary proof of citizenship that millions of Americans don't have. State ID alone isn't enough. 47 states don't print U.S. citizen anywhere on them. 21.8 million people don't have access to a secondary form of identification. That is 9% of eligible voters. Trump's executive order also says that the Department of Homeland Security, working with DOJ, will review every state's voter registration list. And we've seen massive voter roll purges that specifically targeted African Americans, and anyone with the last name of Williams was purged in some counties in Georgia. They are instructed to analyze it, cross-check it against federal immigration databases, demand state records, even by subpoena if necessary. And if election boards don't comply and give them your private voting records, they'll try to sue for them, possibly even criminally charge them, and they filed lawsuits already. That's a problem. They say it's to check for consistency with federal law. But in practice, this is about building a federal system to purge voters. That's why they're pushing so hard for states to give the federal government their voter rolls. And she documents Georgia, but not just there. Roll purges are a practice that the GOP has done over and over again in Georgia, Ohio, Wisconsin, Florida, Texas, and more. And again, there are links with receipts and documentation of this happening in each one of these states. So, if your name doesn't match their spreadsheet,
GOP ain't the only ones.
No.
You know?
No, but in the case of this, it is mostly Republicans purging people. In Georgia, it certainly was Republicans purging people from the rolls. Oh, wow. Sorry, Ghost Store. Thank you, but let's take that down. So, if your name doesn't match their spreadsheet just right, you could be purged from a voter roll, lose your ability to vote in the election, which, of course, is a letter to Santa that's already rigged 6 ways to Sunday. Allegedly. You wouldn't be notified before. You would find out only when you go to try to vote. Then they'll hand you an absentee ballot or one of those provisional ballots that don't actually count. Dissent says, I highly encourage everyone reading this to search up their state's nonpartisan voter protection hotline number and have that number written down when you go to vote in the coming election. This will be your advocate. Again, if you believe in the sham that is voting in this electoral system. But I digress.
Yep.
None of the above. Even more disturbing, when Dissent looked into No Inc., the company that Leyendecker built to run voter verification for our elections, she found that one town, Oak Grove, had raised serious safety concerns and made the legal choice to go back to paper ballots. Instead of support, they got threats of felony charges from officials, all because they didn't want to rely on Leyendecker's poll pads with blaring cybersecurity flaws. If you have to coerce people into using a product, there's something wrong. Seriously wrong. All right? Project Minnesota first raised serious concerns about No Inc's electronic poll pads, which are used in over 71 counties across Minnesota and 37 states nationwide. You see, these iPads connect to the internet and transmit voter data in real time, creating what the project describes as a vulnerability for precision cheating at the precinct level. That doesn't mean hacking an entire election at once. It means using tools like No Inc's poll pads to make small, targeted changes in real time. Because these devices are connected to the internet, can be updated in real time, and are linked to state voter rolls, someone with access could quietly flag certain voters as inactive, delay their check-in, or assign them the wrong ballot, all without leaving an obvious trace. Again, there's a lot more. Well, there's not that much. There is a lot more to this article. So I'm going to encourage everyone to go read this. Again, the integrity of our electoral software is at stake. Now, we would contend that they had no integrity to begin with. This just further confirms that.
Yep.
Right? So paper ballots we thought are good, right? Even Leyendecker knows paper's best, which is why Liberty Vote says it will implement the use of paper ballots, even said in their press release that they'll have third-party audits, which sounds fantastic. These are both two tried and true methods of making sure elections are fair and free. But that's until you find out that the RNC has been quietly funneling hundreds of thousands of dollars into preparing election integrity teams to show up at polling places to conduct surveillance and do third-party audits and hand counts. Third party being themselves, naturally, and they're still inviting people to sign up to join their team, all while they're bragging that they're already over 100,000 strong. Nothing to see here. Please disperse. Okay. According to the GOP website, the RNC sent out these teams last year too, but this coming election cycle, remember, they're following Trump's new rules. They aren't legal, but the rules are that's exactly what these integrity teams will be watching and attempting to enforce. Insane. If a foreign government had this level of control over our elections, we'd call it an act of war. But because of the team of Trump allies, we're told it's all legal. And what's funny, again, is if Democrats were doing this on the other side, Republicans would be screeching about this, but they're awfully silent. Again, they told us the elections were rigged. Then they stole copies. Then they bought the machines. Then they bought the check-in system. Then they wrote the rules. Then they started purging voters. Then they started showing up with surveillance teams and calling it integrity. Again, Scott Leyendecker now controls the machines that verify who gets to vote and the machines that get to count those votes. He says he'll enforce Trump's new executive order, even though parts of it have already been blocked by a federal judge. The RNC says they'll show up to audit and make sure your vote meets Trump's standards. This isn't a theory. It's happening. The infrastructure is already in place. The purge lists are already being built. The auditors are already registering. And the person who decides if you get a ballot and whether that ballot gets counted just happens to be the same man backed by the same machine promising to follow the same illegal order. And he's got voting machines in 37 states and growing. They don't need tanks. They don't need the Insurrection Act. But I'm sure that's not something that they've ruled out. All they needed are contracts, code, and silence. Because if they can control who votes, and as Stalin very famously said, how the votes are counted, and who gets to audit the results, then we're not talking about democracy anymore. But, of course, we know that we didn't really have a democracy to begin with. We're talking about a simulation, one where the outcome was never in your hands. Guess what? That's been the case. If we let this slide, we don't lose just one election. We'll lose the ability to choose anything at all. And again, so what do? Here are some things you actually can do. Solutions. Start local. This machine works because it's hidden in plain sight, buried in your county board of elections, in your city council meetings, and your state house backrooms. Show up. Speak up. Demand paper poll books. Demand real audits. Demand transparency in every contract involving no ink, Dominion, which again is now Liberty Vote. Don't forget that. Or any private vendor for that matter. Transparency is key. Call your local county election office. Ask them directly. Are you using no ink poll pads? Are you using Dominion or Liberty Vote machines? Who supplies them? Are audits conducted by independent groups or insiders? So one of those insiders include Pro V&V because we know they're problematic. Join your local board of elections. Every county has one. Many seats are left empty. They're counting on your absence. Fill that seat. Become an election worker or an observer. Usually those are much older people. It's very difficult to do that, especially if you're working or younger. Screenshot everything. If you know someone's purged or delayed, given the wrong ballot, see a manufacturing malfunction or machine malfunction, document it. The system survives by burying and memory holing that evidence. Super Tuesday 2020, there were a ton of anomalies and irregularities, most of which got memory holed. One of the things had to do with the exit polling, which is something I'm going to talk about in a little bit, funny enough. All right. Blow the whistle. Organize. Don't just vote. Help others check their registration now and again before Election Day. If someone is purged, act fast. Many of these purges are happening in real time. And then blow the whistle. Again, you can do it legally, do it now, or contact her there. She set up a signal number and chat for people. So support Dissent in Bloom. She's doing great work really here. And she did this article about Aspen Martin, Halo Benson's daughter. She wrote an article about Natalia Vlechkova. That's the woman in Ohio related to Anthony Malecki. But she's also writing articles about what Trump is doing authoritarianism-wise. She wrote about Venezuela this week. She's writing about a lot of stuff. So subscribe, dissentinbloom.substack.com, and support independent media, like I always say. All right. So real quick before we get to all right, we're going to talk a little bit about No Kings. I'm going to give it 5 minutes. Before we do that, please support independent media. Ways to do that: Cash App, $, Indie News Network, code-v.com/Indie News Network, paypal.me/Indie News Network, at indienewsnow.com, at innewsletter.com over on Substack, and at indiemediatoday.com. Again, we're live over there now, and it seems that we're holding fine. You know why? We stopped talking about Israel. Amazing how that happened. Mm-hmm. Once again, the minute we stopped talking about Israel, and all of a sudden, boom, connection's just fine. You must be this fascist to vote. Very funny, Mouse. And agreed, great stuff, Dissent. I think Reef needs a vape that looks like a little trumpet or a flute. I think Reef blowing on a flute might be a little weird.
I'd take one.
But okay. Go Start. Voting has zero impact on policy or legislation. That is correct, according to the Princeton University study of 2012. If you are not a max donor, fuck voting. Harps down in Australia. They literally fine you if you don't vote down there. All right. I know that you know how to spell fuck Israel, but you just don't like to. All good, bro. Jesse Jet, eat your heart out. Oh, because Mouse SF says, I played 7 songs in a parking lot next to a used condom, so my career trajectory is keeping stable. Come on, bro. You play alongside Jesse every show, and I love hearing you say what you're playing against and surprised that a chord changed or whatever it is. Again, thank you, Dissent and Bloom, for all you're doing and all you're writing about. And I do want to talk about, again, No Kings. Now, I just want to rehash that I wrote this article back in June. The last time we had one of these, and I will say it, corporate-sponsored No Kings rally.
No Kings. That is what they are.
And I will say that there was a lot of excitement and energy, and not everyone that went out was a shit lib, and not everyone, there were people that went out to be mad and to yell at and to feel community, and I'm not denigrating people, but I will point out that what this actually was a 2026 Democratic Party get out the vote effort. And my big question is, what was accomplished? And this is not to knock anyone that actually does fighting and organizing and work every day to fight the system. This is for the majority of people who showed up to a parade, a rally, to yell and go home and go back to their lives.
95% of the people that showed up to this, you know?
Again, last time they claimed 13 million people attending one. All right. But this time they're saying 6 or 7. Oh, but this was bigger. So which was it?
Right.
Remembering last time, and I saw this floating around this time, that the Democrats abroad changed the No Kings theme of other events around the world to No Tyrants, because there are still some countries that have a monarchy. So we're also swapping out No Crowns in favor of No Clowns. Come dressed as a Trump clown. Think bad blonde wig, orange face, long red tie, or whatever gets your creative juices flowing.
Yeah.
We do a little trolling. It's called We Do a Little Trolling.
Right? What happened Saturday is the result of when people turn off their critical thinking skills and just turn out because vibes and feels. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that again, but there was no stated objective to any of this. There was no actual plan to stop anything, just to complain in public. The rally was organized.
You should play that. That's short.
Oh, was it? Okay. Let's do.
Yeah, because it had the thing at the end of it.
But as you've studied history, and I know this is something you love, is just looking at historical movements, trying to understand how you create change. I mean, what are the ways change happens in your estimation now, if it's not taking to the streets?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the core messages that I'm trying to get across is I'm not saying don't protest. I think what I'm trying to say is we need to reconceive what protest is. Protest, if you look at it historically, what it is it's really a behavior that's culturally defined. People have protested differently throughout human history. I mean, during the American Revolution, they tarred and feathered people or pulled down their houses, or during the Civil Rights era, we marched. And I think now we've reached a point where the current repertoire of our tactics, they're broken. And the reason why they're broken, if you kind of look at why they're broken, is because the story underlying why we protest is false. And that basic story has something to do with that it's kind of a mystical, magical thinking. It has something to do with if you can get large numbers of people in the streets, they manifest some sort of greater power over their democracy, which makes perfect sense in a certain way, because if you can get so many people into the streets saying something, of course their leaders should have to listen to them, but it's not true. It's really not true. So we have to think about, well, how do the people manifest a greater power over their governments? And that gets into these questions of sovereignty, it gets into these other issues. And I think that that's really the direction we need to go, is that we can no longer rely on the fact that we are able to get millions of people into the streets. We act as activists as if that's extremely difficult, but recent years have shown us, since Occupy Wall Street, it's actually very easy for us now. We can get women to march, scientists to march, we can get Black Lives Matter to march. We have to kind of go differently, a little bit deeper. I think the path forward is very hard, but I think that it's going to be fundamentally more rewarding.
Again, we're not saying don't protest. We're saying have a purpose, have a demand, have a the rally again was organized by the party. Let's remember that rigged their last 3 presidential candidates and was partially funded by the billionaire heiress of the largest employer in the country, who's directly responsible for millions of Americans that work for her company being underpaid, still required to be on food stamps, and not given enough hours to earn a living. That's Walmart. So I brought an assortment of tweets for receipts here. And again, this was months ago I wrote this. These were some of the organizations that were funding it, like 5051, Indivisible, okay? The Bernie Campaign, Behind the Ark Jewish Action, Common Cause. And this was just getting up to the C's. This was the A's, the B's, and the C's. There was an entire alphabet of sponsor logos. And again, I'm not calling every person that marched a hypocrite. What I'm calling is the Democrats that support and endorse this march and this sentiment hypocrites. The 13 million people stood in a street or park or whatever, wherever, with no real demand other than saying no kings, many of whom voted for Kamala Harris last November, who, if we recall, was anointed as the eventual Democratic candidate by the donors like a king or a queen. Huh. Imagine throwing a no kings protest after your party refused to hold a primary, coronated Kamala without a single vote, sued to keep Booby off the ballot, and then attempted to remove Trump from state ballots only after your illegal lawfare scheme failed. If there was a modern-day monarchy in America, there would only be one party you could really point to, and that would be the Democrats. All right, as a reminder again of recent history, Biden won the 2024 Democratic primary, even though most who voted for him are effectively forced to choose him. Throughout the primary, Democratic Party bosses made it clear to everyone that Biden was going to be the candidate Democrats had to vote for as the incumbent and the only serious challenger to Trump. Except they all knew he wasn't, number one, a challenge. They also knew he wasn't going to end up being the candidate. Because, of course, a palace coup was engineered within the Democratic Party. One that everyone knew was coming for 3 years. Jesse Jett literally documented it. I'm going to tell you before it's 2024, and they tell you to vote for Kamala. And it resulted in Harris being installed as the nominee to challenge Trump. Nobody, besides the billionaire donors, got to choose her as their candidate. After we all saw how badly they botched the past 4 years, there probably wasn't any Democrat that could have beaten Trump, so they just threw her to the wolves.
If there wasn't, in the context of all in which you lived and what came before you.
That's right. Drunken cam. The people likely would not have, no matter which Democrat she faced in a primary, chosen her, so the party just ensured that she didn't have to face any challenge by exposing Biden's dementia post-primary as too advanced, even though everyone knew for years he wasn't really running stuff anyway, to continue.
Right. Same thing with this one.
Right.
Like, he's not the king. He ain't no fucking king. He answers to the fucking king, which are the capitalist oligarchs that all of them listen to.
Miriam Adelson for one, Peter Thiel for another, Elon Musk for a third.
Peter Thiel, fucking Bill Gates, the money fucking havers. You know?
There was even an opportunity to have an open debate and choose a different candidate at the convention, but that was never even seriously part of the conversation. Everyone around her knew that Harris had no chance and would be a miserable failure if she somehow pulled it off and won. But they still all got in line behind her anyway, because Twump.
Do not come.
The Democrats compromised themselves, bullied a complicit, click-hungry media apparatus, whitewashed and ignored genocide in Gaza, gaslit us on Ukraine not being a proxy war, only to then have them admit it was all along, and even blackmailed half of Hollywood to attempt to make this happen. None of this is changed by the fact that there was a rally. Antony Blinken and Jake Sullivan effectively ran foreign policy for the country under the Biden admin. Anita Dunn, it's come out, made a lot of the domestic policy decisions. That was the auto pen thing. Nobody elected any of them last I checked. That would also apply under no kings. So what happens now? Again, back to Saturday's No Kings. Again, the Democratic-led No Kings rally and corporate
Which
funding.
they stole from Schoolhouse Rock.
Sponsored by
They
Comcast.
stole the whole fucking line.
Sponsored by Comcast.
Stupid.
And now the Democratic Party, again, wants you to believe that they would be a positive alternative to Trump and gave people an opportunity to yell orange mad bad in the streets, funded by the corporate America, largely getting in line with Trump's agenda. Right? So this seems, again, this was my opinion 5 months ago, like it was a liberal pink pussy hat 2.0 party 8 years later from 2016. Yep. Everyone who attended went home that night, felt a little better about themselves with solidarity for a day, realizing they're not alone, and then watched World War III continue to unfold, supported by the same Democrats who organized the protest rallies and even showed up, but nothing fundamentally changed. In this case, the government is still shut down. Not one person, and I will change this decree this time because I do know one person who showed up and will answer these questions, but not one person celebrating No Kings on Saturday wanted to answer these questions in June. Now, remember, the rally was on Saturday, but what happened on Sunday? What happens on Monday? Is there any follow-up, any direct action? Another march 5 months later or 4 months later, is that really a follow-up? Any way to make elected officials uncomfortable so they change their behavior? Well, we certainly didn't see that yesterday. All right. Here again are some tweets from people from April, from June, from Derek Bros, who attended a No Kings rally in June in Houston. All right. The protest is literally focused on promoting No Kings, but because of the left-right propaganda, some conservatives are acting like that's a bad message. It's not. All right. So that's an interesting analysis there. Just to poke a little fun. Woke up this morning. Still no king. You did it, Libs. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I am not.
Just a thought, girl. The psyop is you mass shame, brutalize, and arrest Americans who actually have demands and protests as a pet power. So in turn, they protest like children at a parade, just having a good time. And poof, the threat is gone. Like, it pretty much only approved protest, you know?
So getting back to yesterday. Okay, now, Cory Booker, walking through the No Kings rally and seeing it thousands of times over across the country has me awestruck. So many Americans are ready to stand up against the corruption of yours and fight for a lower cost of living that you're preventing, asshole. I'm honored to stand with them.
Putin's a madman.
He's gone. We can't even talk about Jamal Bowman.
This is amazing. We've got more than 1 million people already, and I can see it's growing. We're out here today to really just say that Donald Trump, his authoritarian tendencies, what he's trying to do is absolutely wrong. We have a nation right now where people...
Okay, remember that this guy literally did his 25-hour filibuster, then walked across the street and voted for Kushner's dad to be the ambassador to France. Keep talking, Corey.
Meet their everyday needs grow more and more difficult. And we have a president that doesn't seem to care. Frankly, just continue corruption. That's all about his own pockets. This is wrong.
He's not wrong.
Everyday Americans.
But he's also...
This is amazing. We've got...
he's also talking about himself. He is just as corrupt and lining his own pockets with donor money and AIPAC cash. And
empty political rhetoric.
And schmooly money.
You know?
So I had pulled something that Keith McHenry had shared. But before I show that, Colin says, meanwhile, Cory Booker, whole Zionist ass, attended. And as far as I know, he wasn't running for the hills after his pathetic display covering for Israel on that I've Had It podcast last week. All right, where she asks him, like, why do you support Israel? Like, they're obviously killing people. It's obviously costing you votes. And yet you can't say that Israel's bad or that Bibi is bad. And he just won't. Protesters are going to complain about Trump, but then vote for this guy at the end of the day, which is infuriating to Colin, and I don't blame him. Yes, Topher, he do love that dildo money. You bet. All right? So what I had said, and again, this was probably a little harsh, because I think in hindsight, it may have helped people feel good about themselves and feel solidarity where they may have felt alone, and I don't want to dismiss that, okay? That is important. People not feeling alone. People not feeling alone is important. But what I said was No Kings really does nothing to help anyone. It's a Democratic Party get out the vote campaign for 26, except that the entire electoral process is rigged to deliver either a Republican or Democrat. As long as one of those two win, the whole system continues, which is really the goal of the Democrats. We can tell from 2024, they don't even care about winning per se. They just want the system to continue. Now, this guy, Arun Gupta, said that he went to the No Kings in June. And he would be at No Kings in New York City today if he wasn't leading a food tour. In all fairness, he would be out there. We should always be in the streets when others are, but don't fool yourself. No Kings is not a movement. It's an AstroTurf campaign to rehabilitate the image of the pro-genocide, pro-Wall Street Democrats while giving liberals a performative outlet to feel like they're fighting fascism while they parade about in costumes, waving signs about saving our democracy before heading to brunch. How many signs did we see that if Kamala were president, we'd be at brunch right now? Tonight, MSNBC gushed over No Kings. Hosts and guests breathlessly talked millions into the streets and sinking polls for Trump like the Red Army was about to storm the Winter Palace and oust the czar. James Carville, the apologist of every Democratic Party horror, exulted over No Kings, saying he was behind it 100% and that he was going to find a protest to join. Newsflash, if you're on the same side of James Carville politically, you're not doing the right thing. All right. Leaders of No Kings declared that they had nothing to do with Antifa, meaning that they were letting Trump determine their politics for them in declaring that they were not actually against fascism. To put an emphasis on the point, the No Kings parade in Portland has refused to march to the ICE building where protesters in inflatable animal outfits have been courageously confronting the Gestapo for weeks. And man, those frog costumes are hilarious to see. But that didn't stop Rachel Maddow from delivering a monologue where she kept saying "we" over footage of the Portland protests. In effect, she was stealing the valor of activists actually putting their bodies in the gears of the deportation machine and trying to transfer that onto No Kings. That is the point I was trying to make that some people got upset about. Meanwhile, in California, No Kings said that it's going to throw its efforts into a redistricting plan to deliver more seats to Democrats to counter Trump's gerrymander in Texas. In other words, vote blue no matter who. How is that No Kings? Marching protesters into the graveyard of the Democratic Party aligns with how No Kings operates, is led by Indivisible, which is run by former Democratic Party congressional staffers. It welcomes the left because that gives it credibility with activists who have no real say over strategy, which is to create enthusiasm for voting for Democrats in the 2026 midterms. Because, you know, if the Democrats take back the House, they have a robust plan of strongly worded emails and more pink placards to take down Trump. The strategy, insofar as there is one, is to change the faces in power who will once more turn right-wing atrocities into bipartisan policy, ensuring that we keep slipping down the slope of barbarism, fully engaging the ratchet effect. And since when was a social movement relentlessly promoted by a $100 billion corporate media outlet, that's Comcast, that gave $1 million to Trump's inaugural committee? That's awfully duplicitous. Shamefully, left media like Democracy Now!, The Nation, Jacobin, and In These Times enthuse over this astroturfed movement, calling it a revolt or a mass movement, and that it's be safe for babies. It's more evidence of the bankrupt whiteness of no kings, because they think they can be safe while ICE Nazis brutally assault brown and black families, children, and pregnant women in their homes, in their vehicles, and in the streets every day, let alone when there's a protest. The whole point of No Kings is not to confront power. It's symptomatic of the liberal pathology that we can have social change with zero cost or risk. So, join in, engage people, see who you can win over to real socialist and revolutionary politics. But don't imagine that this Libria will amount to anything more than the same failed democratic policies of the last 50 years. And what do I mean?
Yep.
Well, let's look at the Queen herself. Yes, Queen. Breaking a crown. I think that crown was constructed of irony. Sweet cheese balls. This is worse than when she tore up the State of the Union speech. Performative. And then, what's her name? Colin said that, you know, this was like a kente cloth bowing, right? All right. Don't these people have jobs? Jason, it's Saturday. No, they're not all basement hobbits. There were millions of fucking people in the streets, man. You can't make that kind of designation. Sorry. No, that's wrong. All right. So it's still corporate funded, even if people who attended have good intentions and do good things. It's still corporate funded, and it's still a Democratic Party get out the vote effort. All right. So again, this was not to attack or go after anybody here who does the work every day. All right. It absolutely was organic, Jason. There's a lot of people that are angry and wanting to do something. And this gave them an opportunity to do something because they're waiting for people to tell them what to do. And this is what they told them to do. I disagree there. I think it absolutely was.
Yeah, it's called inorganic. I agree. No offense. Like, they literally held up, there was people holding up signs literally saying, if Kamala was president, we'd be at brunch.
Yeah, but that's not the only people that were out there. And to automatically assume
yeah, sure, there are outliers.
I don't know that they were outliers.
Massive majority.
I don't know that they were outliers.
I'm pretty sure. From what we saw this week and the last time this happened and the time before that it happened. Like, sorry. Same shit, different day.
Okay. That's fine. That's fine. Again, we can agree to disagree on this, and we can have a conversation about it. I think that if people who are angry enough to get out there and do something about it, try to think that they're doing something about it by protesting, by aligning with other people and showing that they're not alone, that's not a distraction. I disagree. Somebody had to organize that. Somebody had to get these people out there. And We certainly haven't done a good enough job to get millions of people out in the streets. All right.
No, the times we've done it, we've had people show up and try to self-immolate themselves. Like, we've been here, done this.
Yeah. Can't kill an idea. Occupy. Global love and solidarity. Good point. Yep. Yeah. Mouse. I live in a town of 6,000 people, and there was a protest. Okay? That wasn't corporate funded and organized.
Yeah, and?
It's
I bet it was. You don't think they're, like, pushing out to the... Yeah, it's showing up on NPR, and they're, like, showing up to these things. It definitely can be. Like, I mean, whatever.
Well, to put the word out there, all right? Descent in Bloom, I donate to immigrant rights funds, GoFundMe's, I carry fucking Narcan and red cards. I give all my Spanish patients a paper with their rights on it and discharge at work. Okay? This was not about you. This was never about you. This was written before I had even met you. You do the work every day. You show up every day, and you are trying to convert people every day. That's not what this is. But not everyone is you. That's what my point was. Most of the people there were looking for an excuse to go back to brunch. That's what I'm saying. That's what Reef's saying.
Right.
Most people were looking for an excuse to yell and then have things go back to the way they were, for the most part. So they don't have to be bothered. Which it's not going to be. And we know that tomorrow. ICE is still going to be in the streets. All these things are still going to continue. So I have a few other items for the lightning round that I want to get to real quick before we do. Please support the media you want to see. Okay, that's our wall of fame. Those are the amazing people that have supported, including, again, Descent in Bloom. We support her. Absolutely support her. Said, go out and protest. Yes, go do that. If you want to, go ahead. All right. Cash App, $, Indie News Network. co-fi.com/Indie News Network. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com. Over on Substack at IndieMediaToday.com and over at INNNewsletter.com as well. All right. So like I said, I had a few lightning round items, and then I want to get to the GoFundMe's and we can get to boats. All right. So first, Edison Research. I don't know if you've heard of Edison Research. Most people haven't. They're the company that conducts all the exit polls for the networks. And they've basically been owned by a conglomerate that the networks have owned and controlled. Well, they got sold this week, and nobody really noticed or paid attention. But it came across my thing because I read a publication called Podcast Tonight. And because they do podcast ratings, this showed up on their radar. So this was a press release from a company by the name of SSRS. I've never heard of them. But they apparently were large enough to acquire Edison Research. And SSRS, as it turns out, is a pretty big market research firm. A full-service market research and survey research firm announced today it's acquired Edison Research. Okay. And Edison, very famously in the Venezuela elections, was complaining that Maduro was not legally elected. They're the only organization that claimed that because they have funding from USAID and NAD. We believe that they're CIA connected. Again, they've been around since 2003. Edison Research has been the sole provider of election day polling for the National Election Pool in the United States. They've conducted election polls internationally with projects spanning Europe, Africa, and the Middle East and Latin America. They're also known worldwide for its influential studies on audio, podcasting, and digital media. So what this means to me is that this is another layer of a corporation now taking over the exit polling. So for 20 years, it was Edison Research. And they may even continue the brand of Edison Research because it is a well-known, somewhat well-known established brand within the media world. But they may also just roll it right into SSRS and just Now the polling data comes from SSRS, and it changes the perception of that data because part of it is the company that's linked to it. People are familiar with Edison Research, and that there have been anomalies and weirdness regarding Edison Research that literally just cleans the slate for them. And now they're going in unknown. They're an unknown quantity to most people. Who's SSRS? I don't know. How accurate is the data? Well, we're the biggest research firm in the world. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out here is that they talk about how they're exclusive. All right. Edison Research founders, Joe Lenski and Larry Rosen, will be joining the leadership of SSRS. So one of them, I believe, has pretty deep intel connections. Right. And then you've also got, there was one other thing I wanted to point out, that they are like exclusive. All right. They're the only people that conduct exit polling. They're the only, here it is, Edison Research's The Infinite Dial has been the survey of record for digital audio, social media, podcasting, smart speakers, and other media-related technologies since 1998. They don't have a competitor. The company's share of ear survey is the only single measure source of all audio in the United States. So basically, whatever they say is, and they claim to be transparent, and they claim to be able to share their research. Do they? I've never seen any of it. Really interesting. All right. This is their section about political polling and what they consider to be a suite of innovative tools for political and election polling. And this guy, who is the EVP, who has been in some really weird places overseeing elections like Venezuela, Iraq, Ukraine, Egypt, Kuwait, Senegal, and the Republic of Georgia. Interesting basket of countries. To
Weird
say the
list.
least.
Yeah, especially with Ukraine in there.
And I would say Iraq. I mean, did he oversee like the reinstitution of the institution of free and fair elections in Iraq? Because we all know how that went.
Huh.
And we all know how Venezuela, they were the only ones that contended that Maduro didn't win that election. The only organization worldwide.
Right. The only org.
So
and I'm
SSRS.
sure in Ukraine they helped Zelensky get to power after a coup.
Hey, he who counts the ballots is the most important figure there is in an election, right? All right.
Yep.
Next, Sludge is another good outlet that I rely on quite a bit. Two guys that follow the money. Boeing's arms sales thrive on Gaza genocide. So just how much money they're making, $26.7 billion in approved Israel arms sales since October 7th. Boeing stands out as a top beneficiary of the Gaza war. So check that one out.
Yep.
I also wanted to make note that Alan McLeod, Indie Media Award honoree with Indie Media Award honoree Mint Press News, published an article that social media spies are deleting their profiles and that their profiles are vanishing after the Mint Press report that exposed their LinkedIns. Then all of a sudden, those LinkedIns are nowhere to be seen. Huh, how interesting. All right. This actually was an article covered in 2023 by Jesse and Reef on INN News. They read this article 2 years ago.
Yep. TikTok Trojan Horse. Go check that out. Scroll back up and look at the names real quick. Like one of the spots has the names. Like scroll down, scroll up. One of those directions.
Dawn Burton, Jeff Carlton, Haley Chang, all those people. Yep. CIA go away. Interesting. All right. There's now a jarring 2-year employment gap on this person's resume between his establishment with the Scouts and working with Twitter. Who is this? This is Anderson.
Sure.
Mr. Anderson.
Anderson.
Greg Anderson, who until 2019, according to his LinkedIn profile, worked on PSYOPs and soldier system lethality for NATO. Huh.
Nice.
Now he's got an employment gap. Now he didn't do that anymore. It's off LinkedIn. Go check this one out for sure. Finally, I wanted to point out that I have an exclusive from a member of the community who reached out to me and sent me a DM.
Okay.
Sam Hill at Witshit UK said, "Hey, Andy, hope you're doing good. Several members of the Defend Our Juries Signal Chat group that have been charged under Section 13 are reporting that PayPal have closed their accounts. I don't think this has been reported anywhere yet. He's still currently pre-charge awaiting his fate. Matt from the Homeless Left, shout out to Matt, covered his arrest last month. What crazy times we live in." And that's Sam Hill. So shout out to Sam Hill. Thank you for sharing that with us. And we're going to keep looking into that. But I wanted to give you that as an exclusive told to me by someone who was arrested on that Defend Our Juries protest. And again, Defend Our Juries is also protesting on behalf of Palestine Action. So, all right. Support independent media wherever you can, please. If you can do that here on this network, the ways to do that, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, code-fee.com/Indie News Network.
Money, please.
PayPal.me/Indie News Network. You got IndieNewsNow.com where we are live now. We've got a big news site set up over there. INNNewsletter.com where we go live next for Boat Smashing and Other Boats. And at IndieMediaToday.com where we're live now. And you could tip us or support monthly or annually with a contribution over there. Okay. One other thing is just now the GoFundMes and getting into the people that we want to support. All right. Shanda, first of all, I did a one-on-one with Shanda and we published it about 10 days ago. Oz ran it on the Beauty and the Boomer channel. Appreciate Oz for doing that. And it helped Shanda raise $1,000, which she was able to get a laptop so that she could continue to live stream as she has to do that from bed now. So you can watch the full one-on-one over at INNNewsletter.com. Also over at all the INN channels. But you can watch that over there. And links to support Shanda, links to her GoFundMe, links to all of her channels are all right there. Links to the GoFundMe is right there, by the way. So, and then here is her GoFundMe. She's up to almost $6,000 raised out of 10. That's the goal. She recently put up an update on October 7th. That was the last time. And she just recently underwent another round of chemo and treatments this week. Next, I want to talk about Cowboy Kitty and his sister-in-law, Natalia. She is due to have a hearing, I believe, on November 7th was the last time. But as we have been pointing out, that at her last immigration hearing, she broke down and started crying, and that the judge was angry about that and denied her request for bail. She's been there, again, that was in September, now almost 4 months, held by ICE, prisoner, and is not a flight risk or a danger to anyone. Please share and please donate this GoFundMe if you can. All right, they're about 37% of the way to their $4,500 goal. And finally, I wanted to talk about Aspen Martin and Halo Benson. Last night on INN, we ran the one-on-one conversation that I had with them about 10 days ago. And we announced that we are going to be hosting a live stream fundraiser that's going to help them pay for their legal expenses. So let me run this real quick, 35 seconds. So Misty's going to host. Aspen and Halo are going to be there. The Septim Bloom's going to show up and talk about her article and her research on Georgia prisons. Jesse's going to play some songs. And that'll be a week from this Wednesday. that'll be a week from this Wednesday. All right. So join us on INN, co-hosted over on Descent in Bloom over on Substack. Thank you to her for hosting, for helping raise awareness and doing all she's doing. I also, that's also, by the way, on INN's YouTube channel. You can give it a like, share. If you want to share the notification and the details about the fundraiser, you can do that at INN's YouTube channel. Dropping frames. And we're back. This is Aspen's GoFundMe.
Now.
This is Aspen's GoFundMe. All right. So you can support over there. Let me again drop the link for the GoFundMe over in the chats. All right. So support her there. What is this? Indy had just said barely enough material. I said I barely had enough to do a show, right? That's right, Harps. All right. Then we had the one-on-one I was going to show there is linked as well. That's where I talked with Halo and Aspen for a little bit, for about an hour. All right. Again, shout out to Oz and shout out to Descent in Bloom for help with the editing on that after we had done the recording. I went on Hard Lens Media to talk about Descent in Bloom's article, as well as to talk about Aspen and Halo and try to raise some awareness and help get some people over there. So give that a like. Go watch that segment. Aspen's Epic Battle for Freedom. All of these will be in the Substack description after the show. I also went on Prol Pilled with Himbo and Crab to talk about this. Yes, I didn't like these as INN's account. But again, the clip published just yesterday, Aspen's story, the Georgia jail that broke an autistic woman in 15 days. Looking at 33 years. Shout out to Amber King from Brave New Future. Also, she set up a link tree on behalf of Aspen that has links to view some of these videos, get a press kit, the article, the GoFundMe, and the video. You can see all of that here. linktr.ee/justice and the number 4 Aspen. And finally, like I said, we are live over at Indie News Now. I just want to show everybody that this is what the website looks like. It is constantly updating 24/7 with new articles and videos from over 100 sources, including INN and including Fight Back News and including Left Voice, including your favorite creators, and including, again, the INN 8 The Ocho, which we're going to be live on in a few minutes. All right. Then we've got our merch store also. Buy my merch. So the merch store is over at Big Frog. And we've got t-shirts. We've got, thank you. We've got beanies. We've got tank tops. We've got stickers.
Look at my shirt, little bitch.
So pick up some INN merch over at the Indie News shop, which you can get to by going to indienewsnow.com and clicking on the merch link.
Go to my website.
Right. Yep. And I'm spent. Oh my goodness, it's late. Like you said, Harps. Yeah, I said I didn't have enough material. Look at this, 2.5 hours. Fuck Israel. That's why. You can blame Israel, just like we do every week. Because they are pulling so much shit, we had to. Yep. And we're back. One more time. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get to boats and be uninterrupted by all this rudeness of my cable company, dropping my streams and then reconnecting. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for coming. We're going to take a break for a few minutes, come back, settle in, and do boat smashing and other boats. So support independent media because we need it more than ever. We'll see you next week. Love you, fam. Thanks, everyone.
Hasta la vista, baby. I'll be back.
No! We just fucking lost the stream! You can say that again.
I think I liked it better being blind when I couldn't read between the lines. And when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time, I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?
I guess this isn't such an awful place. Is that what you want?